So tell us about kiteboarding. What is it and where does it come from? What do you have to do to become a kiteboarder?
Well, it's got different origins, but pretty much the breakthrough was in the 70s when French brothers, they invented the first inflatable kite that you could actually relaunch.
French brothers?
Yeah, they're called Leguinot.
French brothers? They were French or they were that's the name?
Like two brothers. They were French, yeah.
Yeah.
So they invented that kite, and from then on, it pretty much just a handful of people did it in Hawaii, and sort of like slowly improved equipment. And when I started in '99, it was still kites where you couldn't adjust the power, so just two lines, and you pretty much just.
What do you mean couldn't adjust the power?
Well, with the kite nowadays, you have your control bar, and you can push it out in order to depower the kite, so it's got less power.
How you say depower? As in?
Depower as in,
yeah.
And if you pull it towards you, the kite gets more power. And nowadays the improvement of the kiteboarding equipment has come so far that it's really safe for any physical fit person to try.
Can an old bag of bones like me, old set of 50-year-old skeleton, can this skeleton do some kiteboarding?
My oldest student was 72 years old in Egypt.
Yeah, did he survive the first?
He survived, and he was very well structured and had a very good mind. Of course, when you're 72 years old, you react a little bit slower, but he managed to ride.
Are there slow kites for slow people, or there are no slow kites?
Not yet, no.
So what does it take? How much does it cost? How long does it take for me? Will it take for me to pick up kiteboarding?
Well, from my experience, I would sort of like guess if you had 5 to 7 days of good conditions and a couple of hours every day, you could be up and riding. Of course, there's still a process to go through until you're actually independent and can choose your equipment according to the conditions and go out by yourself. And in general, one's not supposed to go out by yourself.
Do I need to be a swimmer, a bodybuilder, a gymnast?
No, just you need to be able to swim, of course, yeah. And
just in case the kite doesn't fly?
Yeah, like you should understand yourself as a swimmer taking out some toys, which would be a kite and a board, yeah.
All right.
So if something fails, line breaks, kite deflates or something, you should be able to pack up out there and just swim back.
How much does it cost to kiteboard? 5 days of training. What's my investment?
I would say around about $300
a day, or for all 5 days?
All 5 days.
Oh, that's not expensive. That's 15,000, less than 15,000 pesos. This is lodging, boarding, and kite flying, kiteboarding.
That's just an instructor and the equipment you need.
That's it. And the lodging and boarding is other than the $200.
Right, that would be extra.
Not bad. Where do I go? Where do people like me go and say, I want a kiteboard? Where do I go?
Well,
what's the nearest place?
On the Philippines, it would be definitely Boracay.
How about Laguna? How about the Caliraya?
I must admit, I've never been to Lake Caliraya. I don't know about the wind conditions there.
But they do surfing. They do windsurfing out there. It's really a good hangout for windsurfing.
The point is, for windsurfing, you're not as you don't need to be the conditions to be as good as for kite surfing, because with windsurfing you can enter from any cliff beach. You don't from any cliff shore. You don't need a beach to launch your kite from. With kiteboarding, you want a bit of a sandy beach to rig up your kite and to launch from, because if you start on rocks, something goes wrong. You're being dragged across those rocks.
Is the kite inflated?
You have to inflate it first, put on your lines, check everything, and then you have a buddy that launches your kite for you. You have to set up in a direction to the wind.
And compared to windsurfing, which one of the two would you think is easier for senior citizens like myself?
I have never windsurfed myself.
Well, you've never been a senior citizen yourself?
Either, yeah. But people tend to say windsurfing is harder to learn than kitesurfing.
Surfing's harder than kiteboarding?
Yep.
Oh, so I'm your guest. The time you open up your kiteboarding school, you're going to do this very soon?
Yeah, this season, yeah.
This is in Boracay?
No, it's not going to be in Boracay. It's trying to make use of all those other nice locations in the Philippines.
Can you tell the camera there where and how you'll start your kiteboarding school? Because I'm sure there are others like me who want to be there. And
well, it tries to cater not only to beginners, but also to experienced riders. And the point is that on the Philippines you have so many nice locations for kiteboarding, but the infrastructure is just not good enough. So what we will do is provide that infrastructure and take experienced kiteboarders out there for kiteboarding, so they can enjoy all those nice places.
And where is this happening? What's the location?
First things is going to be hopping on a boat, going out for 5 days on a boat and exploring some islands. And that would be between Palawan and Boracay.
Between Palawan and Boracay.
Group of islands.
Okay. Alrighty. And does your lovely wife, does she know how to kiteboard? Did you teach her?
She's
a writer, a painter.
She's not a kiteboarder yet.
No.
No?
No.
What keeps her from being a kiteboarder?
You know, when you're married, you have to have different things you do, so you know you can like have that space. No.
Okay. All right.
He tried to teach, but Johannes is more the extreme sports guy.
But you do all the writing for him, all the promotional and marketing work for him. Is that how?
Not all. He does a lot of the writing as well, but I also help that side of things.
Now, you, Nix, are going to publish a book, publish a story. And I want to hear about that one. Can you tell us a bit?
I do write inspirational articles.
Yes.
Travel articles, a lot of different type of articles.
Yeah.
One of my stories was recently selected for the Christmas version of Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Okay.
And it was just released in the States this month and soon to be released here in the Philippines.
Can you give us a gist of the story?
It's a story that I wrote about a Christmas I experienced in Uganda.
Okay.
With one of the very remote tribes that I was asked to visit by audio ministries in the U.S. with our radio production crew. And I experienced a very different Christmas up there, of course, in the mountains, away from civilization in Uganda. Yeah. And during this time, I realized that perhaps, well, what happened is that I came across a mother who had just given birth.
Okay.
And I wrote the story relating it to how during the first Christmas, it was the birth.
Baby Jesus, yeah.
That's right. It was a birth, and often we picture Mary in flowing gowns and clean and pure and holy and Jesus so nice looking. But how was the first Christmas really like?
Yeah.
Because she was a poor mother having traveled a long way. And when I came across this mother having just given birth, I realized must be it. And I get to have a chance to partake of how the first Christmas was. And I wrote down my reflections then, and it's going to be published in Chicken Soup for the Soul this November.
What's the title of the story?
I called it My First Noel.
And what do they call it? Chicken Soup for the Soul. They kept it.
They
kept the title.
Noel, yeah.
How does one get published with Chicken Soup for the Soul? How good does your story have to be, and what's the process to get it approved and published?
Well, reading Chicken Soup for the Soul stories, you know that it's a lot on stories about the human heart and human
psyche.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know what they go through in choosing the stories, but I do know that you cannot pitch a story to the editor. You must submit it on their website, which is what I did one day. I just submitted the story to the website and kind of forgot about it and got married and had a baby. And I was really happily surprised a year later when I heard back from them that it had been selected to come out this year.
Right. And the books are going to be published by the American companies, by the Canfield company, or by a local publisher here?
Simon & Schuster is the local branch of the U.S. company.
Yeah.
And they're bringing the books here, and they're already here, but we're launching on November 3.
Do you wanna invite our viewers for the launch? You can tell that to the camera and tell them when to come and where to go for your book launch.
Okay. Yes, please come on November 3. This is, I think, a weekday.
Yeah.
And we're going to launch Chicken Soup for the Soul Christmas Magic. I'll be there to do some book signings. And you can come and share your stories too with me. I love to hear stories from you. And if you've been touched in your life in some way, we can talk about it then. So it's going to be in National Bookstore, Shangri-La, that's along EDSA, November 3.
I also requested Nix to allow us, Expat Insights, to give her story away for free if you contact us on Facebook or on our website, and we'll give away the story for free. Is that okay, Nix?
Yeah, you won't get the whole book, but you'll get my story.
Just get the story. Now, how do you go about writing inspirational stories? Where do you come from, and what's your procedure? And you say, I want to sit down and write a story. Does something inspire you first, or do you plan to write it down and then looking for inspiration? What's the technique?
I never plan it, but from my experience, I've had a lot of different things happen to me in life that happened, I believe, so that I can write it down later, because I don't write fiction. Not too good at that. Everything I write has happened to me, or it's been some reflection that I've had from a certain time in my life. But at that time, I never planned to write it down. Sometimes I don't want to write it down because it's too personal. But later on when I do, and people who read my story say that it touched them in some way or helped them, I feel that that's my reward as a writer, and that's what I meant to keep doing.
Do you edit it for readability, or do you just go one go and this is my story? How many edits do you go through it?
When it comes to a book publication, the editors do the final edits.
In case of the other blogs and the stories you write, the shorter ones.
Words normally flow if you just write it without thinking.
Yeah.
And then I go back to it after the whole story is down. And then I edit here and there for punctuation or clarity, or to make it more readable.
When do you say, that's it, I'm not going to change the story anymore, this is how it is, and I'm happy with it, I put my pen down? When do you decide that? Do you look at it from the point of view of the reader, or just for yourself?
I think both. It's sort of like when you write, you get it, you get the feeling that this is a story now, and when it's gone, it's over, it's finished, and oftentimes you'll get a nice conclusion or a nice ending, and that will be it. And anything more is overkill. All
right. What does Johannes do while you are writing a story? Does he help in any way?
He inspires.
He inspires me. All right. So it's been great having you on this show, Nix and Johannes. What I'd like you to do is spend about 30 seconds each telling me how wonderful it is to be married to each other. So you go first.
Being married to Johannes, of course, coming from a different culture, is wonderful but challenging as well, because we have to learn how to communicate everything properly. I think it's exciting as well, because he brings in a lot of insights that I don't have or I didn't think about, and it's fun.
And you, for Mr. Bley?
Well, basically the same, yeah. It's very interesting to see those cultures merge. Even with our son, yeah, you have things happening that, for example, Europeans, when they look up in the sun, they start sneezing.
Yes.
she holds up our son in the sun in the sun, and starts sneezing. She doesn't know why, yeah. So later on, she only hears from me that it's normal for Europeans to start sneezing, stuff like that.
Great, sun in the sun. All right, Johannes, this is for expats, because you are more of an expat than she is. What is that one thing you'd like to do for the Philippines to make this a much better place than it already is?
I'd build some roads to Manila.
From Boracay to you?
No, maybe not. Or like extend LRT and MRT or something like that.
Yeah. You do that. That's the one thing. So you'll help with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
All right, great. So it's been a pleasure and wonderful meeting you too. And I hope your book really sells well.
Thank you.
And I hope I see you kiteboarding someday.
Thank you.
And all those senior people watching here should get to be there with you too. So thank you for being on this show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, that was Nix Martinez and Johannes Bley, and they now live in Manila. This is Expat Insights. I'm your host, Raju Mandhyan. Stay with us. We have another interesting guest coming up. This is another expat, really a balikbayan who's come back from the Philippines. She's a painter, a writer, and a teacher, and her name is Ruth Rina Chianco. So stay with us. We'll be back in a minute.